I've got some knives to show you. Some are good, some, well, let's just say they're not so good. Plus, we're doing a giveaway in today's video, so you're going to want to stick around for that. But I'm not going to keep you in suspense any longer, so let's cut right to it. So I jump on Temu and start digging around, and I wanted to try and find some knife options for those who don't want to spend $400, $200, or even $50 on a knife. After spending some lengthy time scrolling and checking out the details, I found some neat looking knives and even a big surprise. Want to see what I discovered? Then let's head on over to the table and check them out. All right, so let's see what we got here. So before I open this one up, I just want to say that there was a budget in mind for these knives, and everything you're going to see here on this video, except for one, was between $10 and $20 on Temu. We kind of wanted to stick to that budget because just about anybody can justify spending $10 to $20 for a knife. This first one here you can see is in a nondescript, simple cardboard box with a lift-off top. There's no branding or anything on the box, and we just have a simple barcode label, probably created by Temu for their inventory system. So let's open this up, and inside we find a knife wrapped in plastic, a little foam pad only on one side. So let's set. So I chose this one because of the styling. Now this is a slip joint, and I'm a fan of slip joints. Not everybody is, but I liked the style. And when we open it up here, you can see we got a nice long slender pointy blade, a sweeping plunge grind. It's an overall attractive design. On the website, it looked really nice. In hand, not so much. So the first thing I want to note is the fit between the scales and the bolsters is not the greatest. They're not flush in there. It's not a smooth transfer. There's a gap in a couple of places. It's kind of hard to see, but let's see if the light will catch the gap. But right here in the center, there's actually a gap. The bolster isn't contoured correctly. There's some deformations in the contouring of the bolster, and the blade grind isn't the most symmetrical. There's some warbles in there. Not as cleanly ground as the one they obviously hand-picked for the picture. If you look at the plunges here, you can see this side was ground more heavily than this side. So the edge isn't even centered. I'm not sure. I think that's coming through on the video. But otherwise, I mean, it's an attractive design. There's no real places where your finger catch following the fit of the handle along here. The spine is pretty smooth. In the open position, you can feel the transition here. And while you can see gaps between the handle frame and the back spring, it's pretty smooth. Now in the closed, you have a catch here because the spring actually rides pretty low. You can see the shadow of the handle frame there. Not the greatest fit up in the closed position, but pretty decent in the open position. I've actually seen case knives with worse fits than what this has in the open position. A very cheap leather lanyard, but overall, you know, it's an attractive design. This was on the lower end at around $10. Now, let's see if it cuts. So we got a piece of paper here, and well, it cuts part of the way and tears part of the way. How long it'll do that, I don't know. This is labeled by Temu as having high hardness stainless steel blade. So really your guess is as good as mine for what the blade alloy is. And it's just a basic finish on it. The knife feels like there's a bit of an edge there, but out towards the tip, you start to lose it. Now, let's see what it does on wood. So I got this piece of scrap wood here, and we're going to try and do a little push scraping cut. And it doesn't go very far, and the spine has very sharp edges. It's very uncomfortable, and that's all you can get.
So fails the wood test. I think with what I know now, I probably would have passed on this knife, knowing what I know now. This one, I think this one was one of the bigger letdowns on the knives that I picked up off of Temu. So let's set this one aside and move on to the next. Now, the next one we have here, again, coming in a nondescript box, no labeling. The box came in horrible condition. So let's just pull this out. There's no paperwork, nothing inside the box, just a box. But you get a pretty cheap nylon pouch. I mean, the stitching on this thing probably wouldn't hold up long. But it was like a $12 knife, so can't really say much about it. But we'll just toss the pouch aside. And we got some plastic here. And this one I thought looked really cool. Now there is a little bit of surprise in this knife and a disappointment at the same time. The photos they took of this were really nice. And they obviously hand-picked one for the photos, as this appeared to be like some machining that was done on it. And this pivot area that looks like a pivot collar looked like it was a separate piece. But when it came in, we can see they're just plastic scales. They're slightly 3D sculptured and they're printed to look like there's machining lines on it. And this gear mechanism here is, well, just like stamped into the plastic and painted. That was kind of a disappointment. The clip has some decent spring, decent amount of bend. There's no real hot spot from the clip. Let's open it up and take a look at the blade. So this one is a liner lock flipper and it's spring assisted. The blade finish, the coating seems to be pretty thin. The grinding is even. It feels sharp. Let's see what our lockup is. It looks like the lockup is between 50 and 60%. So not ideal, but it is on bearings. See if I can get that to show in there. It's not really showing. But with the light I have over here, you can see the bearings in there. The blade centering, it's writing to the show side just a little bit. I mean, it's really not bad for the price point. You know, these generic brand Chinese knives typically have horrible blade centering. So I'm actually kind of impressed with the centering on it. The action's very snappy. It's a very aggressive spring in the spring assist here. And we've got a fuller, but that fuller is so narrow and so shallow, and with the spring tension of the assistant mechanism in there, there's no reverse flick on this that you can do. Now it's kind of funny because it looks like they faked frame lock relief cutout on this side, but they did it on this side as well. So I'm not really sure what this slot and relief here is. But like I said, it's not an expensive knife. Now, let's see if this will cut. Use the other side here. And again, this is a high hardness stainless steel, which is what half the knives on Temu are claiming to be. But the cutting performance on this one is much like the slip joint you just saw, only this knife feels considerably sharper, but again, out towards the tip, it loses it. Now, let's see how this one fares with the wood. So let's do our push cut again. So this one, there's more behind the blade. So this one, you can get a decent scrape on the wood, and you can do it a few times. Let's take a look at that edge. So this one, it actually doesn't look like it rolled the edge over any. Still feels sharp. I can see one spot right here where there's a little tiny bit of deformation. Actually, we got a spot here, kind of a long one, and then a little one there. What's it do on the paper now? Didn't change much there. It's kind of a disappointment in the fact that they presented it to where this looked like it was a lot more involved than it really is. That's where we're at on this one. It's probably worth the money. It's up to each person, you know, what they spend their money on. But for a $12 knife or in that range, you're probably not going to be super disappointed, at least with knowing that this is all a printed scale, plastic scale, rather than a metal handle. So let's move on to the next one. This one I had a little more excitement for. So again, it's a nondescript box. However, this box is plastic and has this kind of 3D carbon fiber texturing. Now this is a hard plastic box, but again, no branding. It's just a very basic box. Again, foam on the bottom and a knife wrapped in plastic. So let's set this stuff aside and take a look at what we got here. So this one I was kind of excited about. This one is claiming to be D2 steel. It's a flat grind. The grinds actually seem very symmetrical with very consistent plunge grinds. Side to side, the grind seems to be pretty nice. It's a frame lock with a stainless steel handle. The centering on it is almost spot on. I mean, it's off, but so barely. And it may just be the grind that has it off. It's writing on bearings, caged bearings. We have a simple steel pocket clip with a little bit of shape going on to it. And a handle that, you know, the way the machining was done on this, it kind of reminds me of a Snex, but maybe I'm wrong. It's got a flipper tab, some nice jimping up here, external stop pin, and pretty snappy. It's writing on bearings, and it opens right up. Now, let's see where the lockup is at. So it looks like we're at about 30% lockup. No real play in the blade, no lock rock. I'm actually kind of impressed. Oh, we have a model number, STV-10065 on the back of the spine. So they were proud enough of this one to put something on there. It's D2 steel. The edge could be better, but there's an edge there. So let's see what this does on paper. So it's got a spot that's catching right here about a third of the way out from the tip. Yeah, and from there it just wants to tear. But that could be corrected in sharpening. Many of us know that D2 often coming, from some of the Chinese companies that don't put a whole lot into their knives. The D2 isn't always heat treated the best and or sharpened the best. But overall, it seems built pretty nice. Now let's see what it does with the wood. So there's a lot more thickness behind the edge here, and it just wants to dig down. If you keep it shallow, it will shave away at that wood nicely, but the blade wants to instinctively bear down into the wood. The grind geometry on it, it makes it want to cut deep, and that's good, but it might not be the deepest cutting knife out there. It's fidgety, it centers up nice. It's got some heft to it. It's D2 steel, supposedly, and stainless steel frame lock. All in all, you know, I've seen way worse knives for the price. And, you know, if you're into the sheep's foot cleaver thing and the high-tech look, and you don't want to spend a whole lot on a knife, this might be the right thing for you. Now, let's move on to the next one. So again, we have a nondescript box, not in the greatest of condition. And again, no packaging, just a box with some plastic. And kind of a hefty little guy here. But what was really interesting about this one is in the product description and printed on the blade, on the flipper tab, they're claiming this one is M390. Now, I don't know if this is M390. We'd probably have to send it out for testing to find out. We've got steel liners, an outer steel frame, steel backspacer, these big old burly pivot collars. They're steel as well. The blade stock is pretty thick. It's not the greatest finished. And it's flat ground with a pretty steep angle. You're going to get into thick material real quick on this one. It feels like it's got an edge, but I'm not sure how great the secondary bevels are on this. Let's grab a fresh sheet of paper here and see how it cuts. Again, we've got a catch right about the halfway point and out towards the tip. So it's not cutting great. I've definitely got, that just tore. I've definitely got M390 that cuts better. Now there we got a decent cut. And it tore again. So the edge is performing okay, not great. You can actually see some imperfections here in the sharpening. And it looks like right here, it even has some rollover straight out of the box on the edge. Let's see how it does on the wood. So this thing is built like a tank. It's a 2.5 finger knife, an M390. And with the thick grind, it wants to go deep. But I mean, this is actually taking a pretty healthy chunk off here. We'll do it again. Yeah, so now let's see if we got any damage to the edge. Not sure if the camera is picking it up, but it actually looks like there's some remnant of the sharpening burr that's still on this. Can't tell if it's that or if the edge actually rolled. Oh, no, it's not burr. So the edge actually rolled. So if this is M390 steel, their heat treat is obviously not on point. Now this one, I think this one was right at the $10 price point, just like the slip joint. It's snappy. You know, I think a different grind would have been better for a little guy like this. It's so thick and so narrow, it's probably a good 30 thousandths behind the edge. And on a little guy like this, you want it to be slicey and handy because there's not a lot to hold on there. You know, everybody's got their own tastes. It's an attractive knife. The centering on this one, it's just slightly to the show side. It's not bad. Again, this one's riding on some little tiny bearings in there. It's very snappy. It's kind of a fidgety knife, you know. The lock you can get to easily. The lockup is between 40 and 50% here. I'd say right at 50%. Overall, the execution isn't bad on it. I just think there's some little things they could have improved on and maybe not gone with the M390 and done better for the customer to make it out of, say, 154 cm or even a well heat treated D2 for the same money, I know I would have been a lot more happy with that. But let's set this aside, and we're going to move on to the one that really surprised me. This one kind of shocked me seeing it there. I was very skeptical. Now I'm even more surprised. So, we have a Kershaw. Or is it? I don't know. I sold Kershaw for years back when I worked at a cutlery store. I've owned many Kershaws. This brings us onto a subject of cloning knives, and I don't know whether this is a clone or the genuine deal. It is an existing Kershaw model. The packaging looks right. It's got all the printing. It's got the shinier ink for the name with more of the satin box. But, you know, it's hard to say. Now, there's no designation as to the model of Kershaw on the box, but when we open it up and we pull things out, we get a knife in a plastic bag. The box actually feels like a Kershaw box, but that doesn't mean much. We all know all the boxes are made in China. But you get this booklet here. Looking through it, it looks legit. I mean, I know this can be faked. I'm not saying that this is a genuine Kershaw. Everything's right. It doesn't look to be like there's any of that really bad, garbled, translated text. You know, there's not any funny words that stick out. We've got all the patents and pending patent numbers here on it. So, I mean, this might very well be a legit Kershaw. Now, we got the little plastic baggie. It doesn't have Kershaw safety tape on it. But, you know, the blade is marked made in China, and Kershaw's very honest and upfront with where their products are made. So they may add that safety tape to seal the bag closed when they're doing their quality control inspection for their outsourced knives. So this is the Kershaw 5500. We've got a nice carbon fiber inlaid panel there. Stainless steel frame lock. Kershaw lasered onto the clip. What looks to be an aluminum. Actually, it looks to be a plastic backspacer and lanyard attachment point. Steel clip, very, very tight. What looks to be a nice blade. I've never seen one of these models Kershaw's in person. The grinds are really clean. The lasered logo is clean. On the back side, this I'm guessing is the designer logo. We've got D2, the made in China, and the 5500 Kai patented engraving on there for the model number, and Kai, the parent company to Kershaw. This is a spring-assisted knife, probably using Ken Onion's speed-safe mechanism. The grinds are exactly what you would expect from Kershaw. They're pretty close. The 3D milling on the blade is nice and clean and symmetrical. All the various chamfers on the handle are nice and symmetrical. Our lockup is right at 50%. And I don't know if the camera is catching it, but we've got bearings in there. No real weight reduction, but it does look like maybe there's a steel liner on this side. That would be for housing the spring assist mechanism. Now, let's see what this does. They're claiming D2 steel. Again, I don't know if this is a legit Kershaw or a clone. But it cuts like a Kershaw. Obviously, the edge geometry and the heat treat are more spot on this one. That cuts like a Kershaw. I've had this out of the box, but I hadn't cut anything with it. And that cuts like a Kershaw. Now let's see how it holds up to the wood. So it's performing about like the other D2 knife. You can get some decent cuts. It wants to go deep. The geometry on this one is pulling it to a deeper cut, which is often a good thing because, well, it's a knife. You want to cut, and typically you want to cut all the way through whatever you're cutting with. So this one here, surprisingly, we paid $25 for it. Now, I went online and looked in a couple of places, and through many of the dealers that we know about and trust, they're asking, you know, right in the neighborhood of $55 or so. A couple of dealers had it down to $30. So Temu might be a place that they're closing out the residual inventory from whoever the OEM was that makes these for Kershaw. Or if they own their own factory over there, they might just be using Temu as a clearinghouse. I don't know. In truth, I don't know if this is legit or if this is a clone. I'm not going to claim either way. I'm just going to say I was pleasantly surprised with the overall build and feel of the knife. The snappy action, the sturdy lock, and the cutting was right on par with what you expect from Kershaw. So, with that said, we're actually going to wrap this video up. I'm going to put all the knives back out on the table here in just a moment, fill you in on the giveaway we're doing with this video. The knife we're going to be giving away is the Kershaw. Again, we don't know if it's a real Kershaw, but we're going to be giving it away to one lucky viewer. Now, to participate in our giveaway, we're going to be having you place a comment on our video, chop it like it's hot. We will be holding a video later on down the road to do a picking of the winner. Now, you have to be subscribed to us. And of course, you want to comment below, chop it like it's hot. Right here, as you can see on screen, that enters you into the giveaway. The giveaway is going to run for a little bit, so don't worry. You know, if you see this video a couple of days later, we're releasing another second Temu video, and there'll be a giveaway in that one as well. We're going to pick the winners for both giveaways in the same separate video. Now, let's go back to regular view.
Now that we've seen some of what Temu has to offer for low-priced knives, you can decide for yourself if ordering from them is worth your time and money. In my own personal opinion, I do believe you can find some well-made, sturdy knives. Will they hold up? Who knows? With that said, there are some expensive knives on Temu that range into the hundreds, but I can't speak for those as I haven't purchased any or tried them out. We will put the links for each knife in the description box below in case you would like to have one of your own, or just maybe go and do your own research and see what deals you can find. All right, as always, I'm going to run, but make sure you stab that like button if you enjoyed today's video. Until next time, everyone, take care and stay sharp.